Welcome back to Science versus Conspiracy over coffee. I am Conspiracy.
And I'm Science.
On today's show, why do people see conspiracies everywhere?
Why do they?
I don't know. We'll do a deep dive into this right after the break. But first, what kind of coffee are we drinking today?
Today, okay, folks, we're actually recording this on July 1st. It's a hot day. People are outside celebrating one reason or another. We're in Canada, FYI. But regardless of where and why you are outside, it's a good day for a cold drink. So today we went to Blendz Coffee, which is a Canadian institution, at least in the west half of Canada. They don't seem to have them on the east side. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it's pretty much BC, Alberta.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing them back east.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But there's a lot of franchises in BC and Alberta at the very least, from what I know. And so we went to Blendz and we got their version of a Frappuccino. And I hate to say it's their version of a Frappuccino because it's not like they copied Starbucks, but just for you folks to know, that's pretty much what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob loves caramel. So we got him a caramel CHOCOCHILLO. So they call them CHOCOCHILLOs. And it's like a Frappuccino.
But better.
Yeah, it is better. Honestly, we really like Blendz for their coffee. Their ingredients are really high quality. Again, this is not an ad, but Blendz, if you want to sponsor us, we'd be more than happy to go along with that. But we like to celebrate the things that we enjoy. So that's why we're happy to talk about it for now. And so what I got today was a mocha chillo. And what makes the coffee so great at Blendz, it's the high quality coffee. And for me with the mocha as well, the high quality chocolate that goes into it. It's a nice Belgian chocolate. And then both of our drinks are a blended drink. They use ice cream if you want. They use yogurt if you want. Or they use ice and milk product, which is what we get.
Right, and the whipped cream.
And then Bob also gets whipped cream on his. And oh man, their drinks are good. So excellent drink on a hot day.
On today's episode, we're going to take a more scientific approach to the topic of conspiracies.
Isn't that interesting? Science versus conspiracy. And yet they very often go hand in hand.
Conspiracies are only truths that haven't been proven yet.
That's one way of looking at it. But they could also just be lies created to embolden people.
Well, the best way to tell the truth is to say it in the form of a lie so people don't believe it.
No, because if somebody asks you if you love them and you lie about it, that doesn't work.
No, when we're talking about UFOs, Bigfoot, so they don't exist. They come up with all this evidence of shaky footage or blurry UFOs. So there's a whole lot of misinformation purposefully put out into the public to discredit any of the legitimate cases of UFO sightings or Bigfoot or whatever it is. But then there's also been conspiracies that people have denied, that the government and other people have denied, such as the Gulf of Tonkin incident, where years later it was proven to be a false flag and a big conspiracy.
Okay, but you're getting off track. None of that matters right now.
Probably not.
None of that matters right now. I thought we were talking about why do people see conspiracies everywhere. So when we're talking about the need to make sense of things, seeking that knowledge and clarity, that's what scholars, philosophers, academics would call an epistemic pursuit, or epistemology is like the hunt for truth and knowledge, sharing that truth and knowledge, right?
Hmm.
So it's interesting because I read a really cool kind of philosophical paper about what it was actually a psychology paper, but it dove very much into the philosophical, what drives people believing in conspiracies.
Hmm.
And so, when you're talking about your Bigfoots and government denial, etc., and yeah, that actually really applies here because when people feel, uncertain about things, when they need to make sense of their world and what they're seeing, it's that hunt for truth and
Hmm.
knowledge and clarity. And I think a lot of that, for example, with paranormal phenomena,
Hmm.
I think is a good example.
Right. People seeing dead loved ones for the closure aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah, so it's making sense. And they said that this epistemic need to believe in conspiracies really blah, it really appeals to people who see patterns in the chaos,
Hmm.
which I love because you're actually one of those people. So it really spoke to me when I saw that because you do see patterns in chaos.
Right. I think that's what has always drawn me to conspiracies or seeking the truth is that there's a lot of seemingly random events that somehow all kind of tie together. And I like being able to solve that puzzle.
Yeah, and what they said was, and we can link the paper if you folks are interested. But we'll talk about that afterwards. But where you can find our discovery papers. But specifically, when large scale or seemingly really meaningful events happen in life, and people aren't satisfied with the small scale explanations, there's got to be more to it. There's got to be more to it.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that really drives people seeing the conspiracy in an event.
I think it's the whole we're so tiny on this planet, insignificant in the grand scheme of this whole solar system. Because when you see pictures sent back from the Voyager probes that have just left our solar system, and you see how tiny, tiny, tiny the Earth is, it kind of puts really everything into perspective. That like, is there a bigger grand master scheme? Is it just something that we're cooking up, or are there people on this planet that are kind of pulling the strings to some degree?
And that's interesting because there you kind of switched from what they call it, the epistemic need when you're looking for that knowledge and truth to
Hmm.
into the existential need, because that's another one that they've documented a lot about is that search for meaning.
Hmm.
So here, because truth and meaning aren't always the same thing,
Right.
right? So here with especially that's what came to mind anyway when you're talking about the universe and
Hmm.
this larger are we alone? We can't possibly be alone. This makes me feel so insignificant. I need to find meaning in my life.
Right.
And I mean, it does also kind of going back to seeing the patterns in the chaos as well. So, I mean, these aren't necessarily distinct categories. They can definitely be overlapping.
Hmm.
And so definitely when you're talking about the other universes, the multiverse phenomena,
Hmm.
etc., people do they need to feel in control and to be able to make meaning of their own lives. And then, of course, the in control part is a big thing here.
Right, and we touched on that during our one podcast about the free will. Do we have free will and having control? Um, and if we don't have control, have free will, then what's the whole point of this?
Yeah, exactly. And it's often people who feel a lack of control. So whether it be socio-political or just personal, but those are kind of the big ones,
Hmm.
right? That lack of socio-political control, or and even a lack of kind of psychological empowerment. These are kind of people who go to the existential need, I guess, in conspiracy theories. And definitely seeing these as like larger plots that are conceived by powerful individuals or organizations. When you are able to blame your situation on these plots, there's actually a phrase for it. It's called cheater detection.
Cheater detection.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool. So it's you recognize dangerous or untrustworthy individuals, whether it be in your personal life or in the political realm or the social realm, whatever it may be. And by recognizing that they exist, then you're attributing, I guess, blame for your circumstances to them, thus kind of empowering yourself and making more meaning for yourself in your own life. So you're not just somebody that crap is happening to,
Right.
and it kind of absolves you of the blame a little bit. And these cheaters who are in power are the ones that you can lay the blame on for your life. It helps you make meaning of the situation that you're in and can psychologically empower you to take action, whether that be to better your own circumstances or against them is up to you and how you're hardwired. But that's why there's these revolts, right? That's why these, and I think of 911, 9/11 was an inside job.
Right. So the 9/11 is a good example of, I guess, a secret society, possibly secret society, plotting against the American people and causing widespread terror, the likes that we haven't seen in decades. And it literally changed the way that we function as a society since September the 11th. Because I guess it also goes back to Occam's razor. What's the most simplest explanation? Is there a grand conspiracy spanning thousands of years, or was it a group of terrorists in a cave plotting revenge on the United States, hijacking planes and flying them into buildings?
Yeah, and conspiracy theories often tend to reduce like the complexity of life to the most simplest explanation because it's easier for their minds to comprehend and process.
Right. And so the official story is often, I think, overly simplified. And we can even go back to the Kennedy assassination with Lee Harvey Oswald, who was a lone gunman, a loner, had enough, and shot the president. The simple answers kind of ignore some of the more extreme details because it's not as neat and tidy. And I think that's where and that's where the interest for me lies, is that it can't be that neat and tidy all the time.
That's a bit of a bit of a paranoid aspect though, and of course I have to talk about the psychological component of the paranoia. Some people, now don't come at me, either you or the listeners, some people who are conspiracy theorists do have a tendency towards schizoid, paranoia, schizophrenia. And I think to that Mel Gibson movie, God, what was that called? That was so good back when we didn't know he was a raging racist. Oh my God.
Wasn't it just called Conspiracy Theory?
Was it?
I think so.
That was a good movie. But he ended up being schizoid, right? Wasn't he schizophrenic? But he still uncovered something. Right? Anyway, folks, go check it out. Well, we'll have to rewatch it, actually. It's been so long. Isn't that from the 90s or something?
I think so, yeah.
It's really dating how old I am, too. But, so we do have to talk about that because sometimes these added complexities really aren't there. So, Yes and no. Sometimes people who believe in conspiracy theories tend to forego the simple and add in complexities that aren't there and add in blame, agency, interdependence that isn't there. And sometimes that's because of schizophrenic, paranoid tendency. But then sometimes people instead look for the simplest answer. And both of these, what they really come down to, depending on which way they lean, or regardless of which way they lean, whether they overcomplicate or oversimplify, what it comes down to is that the logical, that there's a lack of understanding of logical fallacies and a lack of understanding of complex analysis in a lot of people who believe in conspiracy theories. Now, I don't want that to come out wrong. It's not saying that people who believe in conspiracy theories are stupid, because they're not. It's just that it's tricky. The level of analytical thinking isn't necessarily the same as perhaps with scientists. It's a different kind of analysis and it's a different kind of pattern seeking, but it doesn't always lead to what would be an objective, verifiable truth. But I chose my words very carefully there with objective and verifiable, because one of the things that also really interests me as an academic is the phenomenological perspective, wherein we co-create reality. So you and I sitting here talking, we are co-creating our own reality right now. People who are listening are co-creating their reality as they listen to this with us. We are all impacting each other's realities. And as such, each reality is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm throwing out a lot of kind of philosophical tenets here about what is the nature of reality. This is actually could go really deep here, and I'm not going to go that deep. But none of us can really definitively say what the nature of reality is. But what I will say is that because we all co-create our own meanings, just because some people who believe in conspiracy theories may not be analytical thinkers doesn't mean that they're wrong. I just want to make that really clear. And it doesn't mean that they're stupid.
Right, because there's a lot of things that people have talked about for many, many years that has actually turned out to be true. And perhaps some of the so-called facts that they had hasn't really lined up with the actual facts, but the underlining phenomenon or so-called conspiracy has been true. Like a good example of this is for years and years and years, people, including myself, were saying that the US government was bugging our phones and eavesdropping and listening in and watching us through our laptops. And we were ridiculed for even thinking that. But what happened in the mid-2000s? Edward Snowden exposed Project Prism, CIA, NSA, national listening program, and they have data on every phone call that's been made in the last number of years.
And we know that our phones are always listening now anyway, because that's how Siri works. That's how Amazon's Alexa works. I mean, how many times have we been watching a show or we say, oh, good girl to our dog, and Google thinks we're talking to Google.
Yeah. Or then we see a dog ad on our phone or on our TV.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that maybe some of the things that people were saying about the CIA coming in and bugging every house and everything, not quite exactly true, but the underlining conspiracy of that the government's actually listening to us has been proven to be fact.
Yeah. And so that's why some of these, especially when it comes to the epistemic, going back to that search for knowledge and truth, I mean, it requires the rejection of what they say the epistemic authority. So rejecting the truths that are given by the authorities in power, right? And what can often come of that is increased awareness about a topic like this. The political debates that come up, increased accountability. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have conspiracy theories.
Right. I think it's really healthy to be questioning the authority. It keeps them, like it keeps them in check.
Yeah. And so that's, definitely a valuable component of people seeing conspiracies everywhere. The problem is when it gets a little bit too out of the realms of reality, shall we say. You know, I don't want to go too far into this, but some people reject authority to protect their own cherished beliefs, right? And so, for example, that vaccines give autism, you know, that we're all being, slowly poisoned by our drinking water, you know, and it depends on each individual how far you take the protection of these cherished beliefs. If you have a closed mind and you deny everything being thrown at you, if you deny science, if you deny fact, and just hold fast to your own beliefs, then you're not doing anybody in society any good. What I liked what you said about questioning is good as long as there's that open mind and that there is the ability to embrace science as well as conspiracy.
Right, but I think that's got to play on both sides of the fence
Oh,
too.
for sure. And that's
The
why when we're talking about, aliens and UFOs and other dimensions, if people listen back to our previous podcast, I'm saying, yeah, it could be. I can't disprove it. It could be.
Right, but not just science, but authorities, people in power, like politicians and that sort of thing. They have to be on the open end too, to kind of question what they're being told and to be open to the possibilities that things may not be as they seem.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the conspiracy theories can also pick up steam, is because the very contrarian nature of these conspiracy theories often appeals to the populist people, like the ordinary people who already feel like their concerns are being disregarded by politicians, authorities, etc. If they're not being heard by authorities, then they're going to make sure they're being heard by other people.
Right.
And so actually that brings me to another interesting point about the social nature of conspiracy theories, because I read a study where they actually analyzed like decades of Facebook posts about science and about conspiracy theories. And it was really cool. What they found was that people who strongly adhered to science didn't often share scientific articles.
Okay.
So, I have some friends on Facebook. Yeah, I'm on there, and I shared like about the black hole, the witnessing of the black hole that we
Right.
saw for
Yep.
like the first time. Right, I shared that, and I had like 2 people give it a thumbs up. Right, because people don't seem to engage that much with science in a social media type way. But they found that the group with the strong conspiracy beliefs were really focused in their community, and their attention was on sharing their posts, their knowledge, their beliefs, right?
Right.
They share widely and rapidly, likely because the people in authority and mainstream aren't listening to them, right? Science users were less likely to share the science news, and instead they're more likely to comment on conspiracy pages to inhibit the diffusion of what science people see as misinformation. And I really had to chuckle when I saw this because, for those of you who don't know, I was working as a vaccinator when the COVID pandemic was really high, and I saw myself in it. I saw myself in this, like, commenting on people's incorrect beliefs about the vaccines. And I was just like correcting them on the science of it.
Right.
I wasn't getting into like heated debates or fights or arguments or anything. But I saw myself really clearly falling into that science category
Yep.
of like trying to stop the diffusion of misinformation versus sharing information
Right.
with my own community. Isn't that funny?
That's interesting.
So that brings up the third real kind of category and need for why people see conspiracy theories everywhere is the social aspect of it. I don't know about you, but some people who believe in conspiracy theories feel themselves at the fringes of society,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And when you find like-minded souls, it's a community. And you may not have, and I'm saying the general you, I don't mean you personally, but you may not have felt part of a community before. And then you find these other people who are also conspiracy theorists, for lack of a better name of the group. And then you've got a social community.
You're going to gravitate towards people who are like-minded, no matter what the community, whether it be sports, pinochle, whatever it is. You're going to seek out these people with common interests. And I guess on the conspiracy end of it, it is people on the fringe and who are maybe have too much of an open mind, I would think, because even though stories that are irrefutable about like the earth being flat, there are, even within the, I guess, the conspiracy community, that are, you can be in the fringe of the
an
fringe
outlier out of the outliers.
Yeah.
Right? For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think, I have a question for you. Do you think that people who hold conspiracy theories to whichever degree along that spectrum, do you think that they feel like they're more unique and have something more important to share?
That's an interesting question. I think maybe they feel that they have a unique perspective on a given topic. Maybe something that others haven't thought of.
Right.
And they may feel that they're contributing to something. They're contributing their little piece of whatever pie, whatever the story is. They're contributing their little part to it that someone else may not have thought of before.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to giving them that sense of meaning in their lives too, right? Because we all want to have a legacy. We all want to have some sort of value in the world, and that ties into the existentialism. But the reason I asked is because there's been a study that shows that some people, and again, we have to keep using these some people, these qualifiers, that this is not, we're not generalizing to absolutely everybody here, but some people who are conspiracy theorists are also narcissists because they find themselves as way more important than perhaps their current stature in life reflects, and that what they have to contribute to society is inflated they have an inflated sense of self, to the point of being delusional.
Right, and I could say the same thing about the people who are in power and who are dispensing this information. Each one of those points that you just made applies to them as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, coming from a nursing background, like we know doctors who think they're God.
Yeah.
And like complete narcissists, right? For sure. Yeah. So I know that's why, none of this is ever a blanket wash over everybody, for sure. But it's just interesting because in my mind, I wouldn't have tied conspiracy theories and narcissism together because, again, I don't want to offend anybody, but when you think of like conspiracy theorists, you think of the lone gunman, right?
Right.
And those dudes were not narcissists. Like they're like
The lone gunman from X-Files, not the Harvey Oswald, the lone gunman.
Oh yeah. Sorry, folks. Yeah. We're such X-Files fanatics here. X-Files with a PH here. So I know when I'm saying the lone gunman, I know you know what I mean. But I don't think of those guys as narcissists, right? Because they're like dweebs and they know their station in life, and you know what I mean. And actually, that comes out wrong, saying you know your station in life, but you know what you're about.
Right.
Right. You don't have an inflated narcissistic sense of yourself.
But then you have guys like Alex Jones, who is kind of on that other end of the spectrum.
Narcissist for sure. Yes. Good point. But I hadn't put those two together before. Right. I just thought Alex Jones is just, for lack of a better word, a lunatic. I hadn't thought of narcissism falling into that category because when you think of narcissists, like, I think of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho and, things like that. But, that's funny.
But with a lot of these narcissists, like Alex Jones, say what you will about him, he has been right. And it kind of goes back to what we talked a little while ago, is that not necessarily who's saying it or what they're saying, every little piece is correct or not, but the underlining conspiracy truth is there, and he's been right on a lot of information, and he puts out or has put out a lot of eye-opening documents. His methods,
the way he's gone about things,
it may be in question, but the fact remains that the information is there, and it's opened a lot of people's eyes to different truths.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that epistemology too, where like I was saying earlier about the positives that come out of seeing conspiracies everywhere is that it does hold people accountable. It does increase awareness about things. It challenges political ideations. And he's definitely done that. I would also caution that a lot of it's been really damaging because of, a lot of the insurrection attempts and things like that. But that's another story. That's another story.
Okay, so one other point I want to make before we wrap it up for the day, because there is that aspect of, I guess, the so-called conspiracy theory of people who have been abducted by aliens, who have seen ghosts, who have not asked for any recognition or kind of want to keep it hidden, but still are somewhat of a participant in the conspiracy of aliens or of the paranormal, and they can't explain it, but they have had this experience.
Yeah, so there's definitely participants in the world of conspiracy, but we have to use the phrase conspiracy loosely here, because conspiracy implies that there's something being covered up or made up in some ways. Yeah, manipulated, right?
Right. All right, folks, that's it for today. We wanted to say thanks for listening over the course of these last 13 episodes. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot for your support.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks. We're going to take a week off and prepare for season 2. We've also just wanted to let you guys know that we've launched our Patreon channel. We'll leave a link in the show notes. So if you're feeling so inclined, please head over there. There's some exclusive content that we're going to be constantly adding to it.
Absolutely. And so with that, I'm going to say adieu. This is Science reminding you to stay curious, but rely on the facts.
And I'm Conspiracy, and remember, being paranoid is smart. We'll see you next time. If you like the episode, don't forget to subscribe. You can download us on any of the major podcasting platforms. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy over coffee was produced by Lethologica. Writing and research was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.